Alright, so Don Lemon found himself in the center of the news today among someone else that we'll be talking about next. So if you're reading the headlines, then you already know what's up. It says, the dramatic end of Don Lemon's controversial tenure at CNN. In short, they let him go. CNN actually fired Don Lemon. It would seem from what I'm reading that they did it in a way that was put through memo. That's about as nice as breaking up with someone through text.
You're fired. There's the door.
Well, listen, I completely understand because I know that the only way that you can continue to advance is through change. So companies always shake up the business every now and then, kind of just to keep everyone on their toes, and you bring in new talent. So new talent will eventually fill his spot. But you gotta remember that there were a few things that were circulating through the ether. So let's go through this article because there were some things that were going on prior to this. So for those of you that aren't aware of what's been transpiring, let me see if I could properly bring you up to speed. Alright, so here we go. Red flag number 1. Don Lemon lost his primetime spot to be moved to the morning.
Hey, Don Lemon. Oh, wait, no. Should I say, good morning, Don Lemon? There's some news. I'm excited.
The peanut gallery's over here. I have no idea what you're talking about, Laura Coates.
What? You don't know anything? You know what? Maybe you're on London time still, but there's some big news here stateside on this side of the pond.
I am exhausted. I just got back today, and what a time to be on the plane when this happened. And then I get off the plane, and my phone literally was blowing up. It has been heated all day.
So CNN ended up launching a show called CNN This Morning just before the midterm elections. Now, while it shouldn't be seen as an issue for most individuals, we're not talking about most individuals here. We're talking about possibly one of, if not the most recognizable face of CNN. And they've been doing a little bit of a shake-up for some time now. If you remember, Chris Cuomo was also released as well. So adjustments have been nothing new, but anyone that kind of saw the writing on the wall knew that something was up because this was a clear demotion. Not that there's anything wrong with being in the morning spot, but if you were starting in the morning spot and then you got moved to the prime time spot, that's a huge setup for you in your favor. But if you went from the prime time spot to the morning slot, they're artificially limiting the eyes that you have exposure to. There's a reason why they call it prime time. Most eyeballs are watching the news around this time. And so for Don to lose this spot, this is basically, imagine a manager who's been a manager for 20 odd years, who now has to take on the role of the cashier or the inventory person, or whichever. I know I'm making the morning slot sound really demeaning right now, but that's basically what transpired. Now, while at this point it's not immediately clear why he was let go, I could take a couple of guesses. Which inevitably brings me to red flag number 2, because while you see it's not 100% clear as to why CNN let Don Lemon go, it is clear that some people were making allegations that he was quote-unquote misogynistic. Now myself, much like everyone else who's not in the know or who's within that circle, would be just thinking, okay, if there are allegations of this, it's probably a new thing. This is not an old time thing. But apparently, this has been going on for years, according to some of the anchors. And that's only the stuff that we heard about that's been going on behind closed doors. Never mind you, the stuff that Don Lemon has said on television.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
You see, Don had made mention that Nikki Haley's viability as a presidential campaign was in question because she was of the age of 51. So he was, as she put it, past her prime. I honestly am of the opinion that Don thought he would have gotten away with making a statement like that because he was saying it about a Republican. Never mind the fact that the women that he was around looked completely horrified at the statement that he was making. Again, aside from all of that though, CNN did make mention that they had parted ways with Don Lemon and, the CNN families, and they thanked him for his 17 years of contribution and all his good work, and they wished him all the best in their future endeavors. All of the good stuff that you're technically supposed to say. However though, on Twitter, it should be suggested that things probably didn't look the same way that they were putting it. You see, Don did put out a tweet, and it reads like this. I was informed this morning by my agent that I've been terminated by CNN. I am stunned. After 17 years at CNN, I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to terminate me directly, or to tell me directly. This is why I said this is tantamount to you breaking up with someone through text message, or through one of their friends. Don continues where he says, at no time was I ever given any indication that I would not be able to continue to do the work that I have loved at the network. It's clear that there are some larger issues at play. With that said, I want to thank my colleagues and many teams that I've worked with for an incredible run. They are the most talented journalists in this business, and I wish them all the best. Things are not so peachy. Don did say that there are more issues at play. And for CNN to say something along the lines of, we had parted ways with Don Lemon in a good manner, he made it quite clear, no we didn't. As well, you see that one line where he also says, I am stunned. This is Don Lemon that we're talking about. This is no regular anchor. And then you heard where I read that he says, I would have thought that someone in management would have at least had the, and listen to this word, decency to tell me directly. To accuse someone or a team of not even having the decency of doing something towards you means that you either feel that they have no respect for you or you just lost a whole pack of respect for them. I'm telling you, it's troubled waters at CNN. Now, something that I need everyone to pay attention to. Don Lemon's tweet was posted at about 12:14 p.m. and we already read his statement. CNN then put out their own little statement and it reads like this. Don Lemon's statement about this morning's events is inaccurate. He was offered an opportunity to meet with management, but instead released a statement on Twitter. This would, of course, be right after the memo. One thing I love about this tweet, though, is if you read a little further down the line and you see some of the comments, it says from this guy named Joe Soul, he says, well, you paid him to lie for 17 years, so I'm not surprised that he lied. But you gotta remember, that same clip that we just looked at, where Don was making the statements about Nikki Haley, it wasn't just that he faced a couple of dirty looks from his co-hosts, he was also put on leave. So he was penalized for those statements.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
For instance, listen to the words he was saying when Poppy Harlow was asking him what he meant by those kind of statements. He did say, don't shoot the messenger, as if this is something that's not new to him. So he's been thinking like this for quite a long time. Now, take into consideration who CNN is. CNN is, quote unquote, one of the most, on the surface, the very face of liberal media. I don't think you really get as big as CNN. Name someone that's bigger. This is liberal head office. But of course, Nikki Haley did respond by messaging back and saying that it's always the liberals who are the most sexist. And obviously, CNN's chairperson, Chris Litch, he condemned the statements in a message that he put out himself. Yeah, because there's damage control that needs to be taken into consideration now. You can't, on the one face, say that you're a champion for women and women's causes. And I don't know, we know Don likes to drink, so maybe he had a little too much of the sauce that day. But you can't be a champion for women and then on the next breath, be saying something like she's past her prime. So if she's past her prime, what was Hillary? What was Elizabeth Warren? Did he think that they were past their prime too? Because at the time, he sure didn't sound that way. Or maybe he could say these things because he was thinking it's okay because she's just on the other side. He issued his statement afterwards and said, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Yeah, you did. He just didn't mean to get the backlash. But it was a situation of one thing piling up after another. If you remember, and this is the last thing that we're going to cover, this would be what I would call red flag number 3. Not even taking into consideration that whole Hampton situation. But he was also accused of malicious texts, mocking female co-workers, and having a diva-like behavior.
You serious?
If some of you know anything about Don Lemon, then maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this aspect. But to me, and this is just the eye test right now, he looks like someone that would be a diva in the absolute worst way. Very accomplished individual. I can't take that away from him. But he looks like he'd be difficult to work with. One of those types that every single day you'd have to hold back your hand. But to continue, he was co-anchoring from CNN's live weekday show with Kyra Phillips. And it's even reported that there were tensions that kept on mounting between the two of them. And on more than one occasion, they had to pull the show off the air because of those same tensions that were brewing. He even disrespected Nancy Grace. I remember when she was big. Whatever happened to Nancy? So in short, Don Lemon is no stranger to accusation. He's no stranger to scandal. Ooh, and he's no stranger to criticism as well. And so, CNN, after so many years, approximately 17 in total, has decided that it's just too much now. They need to let this guy go. And they couldn't even do it in person. This not only says something to me about CNN, but it also has a lot to say about Don. Honestly, I can't really tell you that I'm shocked. I'm almost at the point where I was wondering, what took them so long? I mean, from the regular narrative, Don seems like he was stepping out, and he was talking out of pocket a little too much. Where he ends up next, I don't know. Maybe MSNBC, maybe he does what everyone else does and starts a podcast, Late Night with Don Lemon, or he'll make a show like The Squeeze with the Lemon, or give it the title, I don't know, That Sour Feeling. Nah, I'm just rambling, to be honest. But I want to know what you guys think. What do you have to say about this? Are you surprised at the fact that Don Lemon has been released from CNN, or were you wondering, like some others, what took them so long to release this guy? Have you heard about some of these scandals? Did you know about some of the situation that he found himself in? And what's your opinion of it? With that situation with Nikki Haley, do you think he was overboard? Or do you think he was on the money? Were there other problems going on at CNN that they haven't divulged yet? I'm kind of interested in seeing how this story unfolds. If they decide to, maybe unpack some other stuff, maybe we might even get a leak or two. Whatever it is, I'll follow along with this as more information gets revealed. But I will see you guys again for the next one. I almost wonder who's going to be their new go-to. Because Chris is gone. And him. But guess we'll wait and see. Alright, y'all. I'll see you guys for the next one. Be easy.
You're fired. There's the door.